question, Antony. Good to have you on the programme once again. The rhetoric seems to be ramping up and the danger of escalation seems to be increasing as well. Donald Trump's diplomacy, unusual to say the least, you would have to point out, given that he appears to have threatened a head of state on social media.
I think the words Donald Trump and diplomacy really shouldn't go together. I mean, he's been a complete disaster on this issue, Russia-Ukraine. I mean, Donald Trump, I think, would know what the word diplomacy means. Listen, we are in obviously uncharted territory. I mean, there's been threats from the Israelis, of course, towards the supreme leader of Iran. We've got Trump now also making threats. You know, so much of the discussion since this began last week was this was an Israeli-led attack. And militarily, that's true. But this is a US-Israeli mission. It's been reported, and I've also spoken to various sources as well in the last days, that it's incredibly clear the US provided intelligence to Israel as well as some assistance when Iran was firing missiles back into Israel. This is a joint attack. And although there's lots of discussion around the supposed splits in the MAGA movement, the Trump movement, those who support bombing Iran, those who don't, or regime change. I mean, the thing that's so petrifying, that's frankly receiving barely any coverage, is there is no plan if the regime falls. What is the plan of what happens to 90 million odd Iranians? I mean, the only groups that you hear within Iran or outside advocating actual regime change are fundamentalist pro-Israel fanatics who have no support within Iran. Now, whether that doesn't bother Israel or the US, frankly, who knows? But that's a petrifying fact that if the regime falls, and anyone's guess whether that would happen in the coming days or weeks, what happens next? Is it going to become a Libya-style nightmare, or something like Syria, or countries that are divided? That's what worries me a lot at the moment.
Do you feel everything is pointing towards the United States becoming involved directly, militarily? Bear in mind, just 6 days ago, Donald Trump was still talking about hopes of a diplomatic solution with Iran.
I mean, making predictions about Trump, how he feels in the morning when he wakes up, is a fool's game, isn't it? But look, the indications seem to be that Trump is moving towards some kind of greater involvement. I mean, what that practically means is using US military assets, either trying to destroy nuclear targets within Iran, potentially killing the supreme leader, although I suspect Israel could do that if they really wanted to. And the fear is that that does lead to either the collapse of the regime or, frankly, not. I mean, what is so unclear is there are large numbers of Iranians within Iran who hate the regime. That's been the case for years. A lot of them have no love for the regime, but they also don't want to have a regime overthrown by the Israelis or the Americans because they fear, rightly, what might come next. We've all seen and remember what happened in Iraq and Libya and, frankly, Syria and elsewhere. So many Iranians, young Iranians especially, including friends of mine, they hate the regime for a good reason. It's a deeply repressive state, but that doesn't mean that they want their state to be overthrown in the likely chaos that comes after. So I very much fear that the US is being, Trump particularly, is being coerced or pressured into doing this. And it's worth saying, as I've said about the war in Gaza for the last 20 months, who is the superpower here? I mean, on paper, it's the US. The US is the superpower. Israel is a tiny country with 10 million people. But frankly, we have yet again a situation here where Israel is frankly dictating terms. Netanyahu, the pro-Israel lobby, huge amounts of American politicians who are bought off by the Israel lobby. I mean, a lot of media commentators, Fox News, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And this, to me, is just a insane continuation of what we've seen for years, that the US is willingly, with their eyes open, being led to more and more failed wars in the Middle East. We had Iraq, which is obviously backed by Israel. We had certainly the Syria. We had now Iran. I mean, it's just a absolutely bonkers situation. So it worries me greatly if Trump's going to escalate, yes.
Well, very much so. And when he calls for an unconditional surrender of Iran's supreme leader, and that is just frankly not likely to happen. And the concern here is, I suppose, that Iran is being backed into a corner and left with little choice but to fight on, because the alternative is complete humiliation and the end of the regime.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that is the lesson that we've seen time and time and time again. I mean, look, if you look at the last 20 years, when the US goes into Iraq in 2003, Saddam was overthrown in a month. That was never challenged because US militarily is going to be far stronger than the Iraqis. But here we are years and years later, and Iraq became a failed state, and there was roughly 1 million Iraqis killed because of that catastrophic war, which no one's been held account for. And it's amazing, frankly, watching American TV today in the last days, the same voices, the same people that pushed the failed catastrophic illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria, the ones who have blood on their hands, are now advocating for US military intervention in Iran. And that kind of willful amnesia just, I think, contributes, frankly, to why so many people don't trust the mainstream media anymore, and rightly so.
Yeah, and the classic failure of learning from history or not learning from it. Anthony, thanks very much, as always, for your analysis. Pleasure having you on the programme.